In 1947, on a bustling Hollywood studio lot, a promising young actress vanished. Her script was left behind. So was her handbag. She was never seen again. Between the 1930s and 1960s, over 30 stars disappeared, swallowed by a world that worshipped them one day and forgot them the next. Beneath the surface of glamour and silver screens, there lurked something far more chilling. Silence, secrets, and stories that were never meant to be told. Hollywood could turn nobodies into gods, but when the spotlight faded, some simply vanished. And it all begins with Barbara Newhall Follett, the girl genius who walked away from the dream. Barbara Newhall Follett, the vanishing prodigy. December 7th, 1939. Barbara Follett left her Hollywood Hills home after a bitter argument with her husband. She took only $30 in her wallet. She never returned. At just 12 years old, Barbara had published her first novel. By 18, she had written 4 critically acclaimed books and was hailed as a literary prodigy. Her brilliance earned her a job at Paramount, polishing dialogue with uncanny ease for $750 a week, the equivalent of over $14,000 today. Yet despite her success, she vanished without a trace. Her typewriter held a half-finished screenplay. It was as if she had planned to come right back, but she never did. And it wasn't her first disappearance. At 16, Barbara had once taken off alone on a sailing trip, returning weeks later with notes for her next book. But this time, she didn't come back. Private investigators found no confirmed sightings, only whispers. A librarian claimed Barbara was reading books about changing identity in Pasadena during the early 1940s. When someone called her name, she fled. It was the last almost sighting in a case that still baffles historians today. Jean Spangler, The Note, The Mob, and the Missing Starlet. October 7th, 1949. Jean Spangler, a rising Hollywood beauty known for her roles in Phantom Lady and Young Man with a Horn, disappeared without warning. Her purse was found in Griffith Park. Inside was a note. Can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away. Kirk. That one sentence ignited decades of speculation. Jean had just filmed with Kirk Douglas, who quickly denied knowing her beyond the set. But rumors swirled. Was she pregnant? Was the Dr. Scott an abortionist? Who was Kirk, really? Then came the man with the scar. Witnesses saw Jean at the farmer's market with a sharply dressed man around 40 with a distinctive facial scar. Police believed he matched the description of Davy Ogle, an associate of mob boss Mickey Cohen. Just 2 days later, Ogle vanished too. Some thought Jean and Ogle had fled together. Others whispered of mob ties, secret lovers, and a starlet who knew too much. Despite one of the most exhaustive missing person investigations in Hollywood history, nothing was ever found. No body. No real leads. Her daughter, just 2 years old at the time, spent her entire life searching for answers and died in 2018, never knowing the truth. Tara Brown, the aristocrat who crashed and vanished. In 1966, Tara Brown, heir to the Guinness fortune and newly minted Hollywood hopeful, died in what was ruled a high-speed car crash in Los Angeles. But decades later, few believed the official story. Tara had just secured a supporting role in a counterculture film. Casting directors were stunned by his effortless charm. A British socialite with a rebellious streak, Hollywood saw him as the perfect contradiction. But witness accounts didn't match the police report. 3 people swore they saw Tara walk away from the wreck. The damage on his Lotus Elan didn't look like the result of a fatal crash. And just weeks before, Tara had confided in his lawyer. He was receiving over his business plans to open music venues in LA. Organized crime was involved, he said. After his supposed death, sightings flooded in. Mexico, Morocco. Former friends described detailed encounters that couldn't be brushed off as fantasy. Insurance investigators quietly reopened the case in 1974, but still upheld the crash ruling. And yet, the mystery lived on, in lyrics. He blew his mind out in a car, sang the Beatles in A Day in the Life, a haunting tribute to a man who may have staged the most poetic vanishing act Hollywood ever witnessed. Constance Smith, the star who faded into shadows. Once hailed as the next Gene Tierney, Irish actress Constance Smith soared under 20th Century Fox's spotlight in the early 1950s. With European elegance and magnetic warmth, she seemed destined for immortality. Then, slowly, she disappeared. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Behind the red carpet glamour was a woman unraveling. Medical records showed repeated hospitalizations, injuries that doctors quietly flagged as signs of abuse. Her turbulent relationship with director Edward Meitrick derailed her career and broke her contract. By the mid-1960s, witnesses began spotting her in heartbreaking scenes. A makeup artist found her asleep in Musso and Frank Grill. When approached, Constance spoke with grace, as if she were still under contract, then politely asked for money. Her presence became spectral, there, but fading. Always vanishing, just before anyone could help. The last confirmed sighting came in 1968, behind Soundstage 4 at Fox Studios, where she once starred in major pictures. A security guard had been quietly leaving her food. After that, nothing. She vanished as quietly as she once dazzled, leaving no body, no farewell, just a ghost in the shadow of Hollywood's golden age. Billy Love, The Brother, The Boat, and The Vanishing at Sea. In 1931, Billy Love, brother of silent screen star Bessie Love, set out on a routine sailing trip near Catalina Island. His yacht was later found drifting, perfectly intact. Billy was gone. He wasn't just a sibling of fame. Studio records show Billy had aspirations beyond being an extra or stand-in. But financial strain had caught up to him. High-interest loans, debts piling up. Just before the voyage, he purchased several large life insurance policies, naming Bessie as the beneficiary. The Coast Guard was baffled. No signs of distress. No foul weather. Charts were in order. The boat was fully functional. Why would an experienced sailor abandon ship? Then came the surveillance. Insurance investigators trailed Bessie Love for nearly 3 years. They photographed her meeting with individuals suspected of forging documents and facilitating disappearances. Rumors grew. Was Billy alive? Hiding under a new name? The mystery deepened in 1952 when another yacht vanished in the same waters under nearly identical conditions. To this day, no trace of Billy Love has been found. Was it a tragic accident? Or a carefully choreographed escape? A man fleeing debts? Or a sister covering for a fraud? Oscar Zeta Acosta, the legend behind Dr. Gonzo. In 1974, Oscar Zeta Acosta, fiery attorney, activist, and unlikely Hollywood actor, vanished during a trip to Mexico. His story was already the stuff of legends, but his disappearance? That became myth. Best known as the inspiration for Hunter S. Thompson's Dr. Gonzo, Acosta had just starred in Where the Buffalo Roam and secured roles in 3 upcoming films. His career, like his presence, was loud, unfiltered, and rising fast. Then came a phone call to his son from Mazatlan. Acosta said he was heading out by boat to explore the coast. He was never heard from again. Mexican police found nothing. U.S. consulate officials found no body, no evidence, no leads. What they did find, weeks later, was fear. Acosta had been working on a book exposing corruption in both the Mexican and American governments. He had enemies, from cartels, from judges, from federal agencies. Witnesses reported sightings for years. Miami, border towns, back in Mexico. One former client described a detailed conversation in 1977 about a court case only Acosta could have known. Was he killed? Or did he disappear on purpose, rewriting his life like one of his own chaotic legal dramas? No one knows, and Hunter S. Thompson never stopped wondering. Thomas Cooper Gotch, the artist who left this world or another. In 1944, Thomas Cooper Gotch, renowned British painter turned Hollywood art director, vanished. But this wasn't just a disappearance. It was the start of a legend. Gotch was a creative enigma. MGM loved his haunting set designs, perfect for psychological thrillers. But behind his brilliance lurked obsession. He spoke often of cosmic energy patterns and the invisible forces he believed shaped Hollywood's geography. When police entered his apartment, they found it spotless, except for the walls. Covered top to bottom in cryptic symbols, diagrams, and what appeared to be ancient codes. Then there were the pocket watches. 27 identical vintage watches, each stopped at different times, arranged in a precise celestial pattern on his workbench. Colleagues had noticed changes. He measured studio buildings with a tape during lunch breaks. He spoke of alignments, portals. Studio psychiatric staff had begun monitoring him informally, but it was too late. Gotch vanished without a trace. Then, something stranger happened. A carpenter, a script supervisor, and a camera operator each reported the same dream in the weeks after. In it, Gotch stood in the Hollywood Hills, smiling as if he had crossed over, somewhere else. Maybe he didn't die. Maybe he transcended. Al Hockey, the cowboy who rode into oblivion. In 1941, Al Hawkey, one of Hollywood's earliest Western stars, saddled up for a routine ride in the San Fernando Valley. Hours later, his horse returned to the stable alone. What followed was one of the most exhaustive search operations in Hollywood history. Hawkey wasn't fading. Far from it. He had just renegotiated his Republic Pictures contract and was thriving in the transition from silent films to talkies. But in the weeks before his disappearance, friends noticed something troubling: paranoia. He spoke of being followed, of checking under his truck before driving, of switching riding routes without notice. And then he was gone. Rescuers scoured the hills. There was no sign of struggle. Then came the twist. His custom boots and hat were discovered nearly 7 miles off his usual trail. No footprints, no blood, just his most iconic gear, left behind like a calling card. In 1951, bones were found nearby. Hopes rose, but forensics ruled them out. They weren't his. Then came the postcards. For nearly a decade, Hawkey's brother Jack received blank cards from cities in Mexico and South America, postmarked, anonymous, untraceable. Was it a warning? A breadcrumb trail? Or proof Hawkey had faked his death to escape something far darker? Marie McDonald, the body that Hollywood couldn't keep. They called her the Body. Marie McDonald lit up nightclubs and MGM musicals with a presence both dazzling and vulnerable. But behind the beauty lay a string of disappearances, some possibly staged, others horrifyingly real. In 1957, she claimed she'd been kidnapped by 2 men and held for 24 hours. The police didn't buy it. Her story was shaky, her injuries suspicious. But was it all a fabrication? Or a cry for help the industry chose not to hear? Marie's life was a cycle of success and sabotage. Internal studio memos praised her comedic timing, then warned of her emotional volatility. She was magnetic and messy, a liability in a world that demanded perfection. But the danger wasn't just internal. Letters uncovered after her death reveal Marie had been receiving threats, real ones. She hinted at secrets involving organized crime, shady financial dealings, people she shouldn't have known. Then came her final disappearance. They found her body in her home. Official cause: suicide. But barbiturate levels were barely high enough. Photos showed signs of a struggle. And yet, the case was closed. Marie McDonald disappeared over and over, sometimes from the world, sometimes from herself. In the end, the truth about her fate vanished too. George Smiley, the invisible man of Hollywood. George Smiley wasn't famous. In fact, that was his power. A character actor with a forgettable face, Smiley blended into every background role in the 1940s and 50s. Casting notes called him perfect for crowd scenes, never distracts. But when he vanished in 1952, something didn't add up. He lived modestly, yet his finances told a different story. Lower than average pay, yet a comfortable lifestyle. No debts, no side gigs, just money that came from somewhere. Then the FBI stepped in. Within days of his disappearance, federal agents took over the case. The file was marked classified. Why? He was just a background actor, wasn't he? Witnesses later recalled his strange habits. Always taking notes on set, not lines, but interactions. Who spoke to whom? For how long? What was said? A makeup artist described his notebook as spy stuff. Suddenly, the whispers began. Was Smiley a government asset embedded in Hollywood? A quiet observer gathering intel under the cover of cinematic anonymity? Years later, declassified documents referred cryptically to the Smiley situation, in connection with Cold War counterintelligence operations inside the film industry. George Smiley disappeared, not because no one noticed, but because no one was supposed to. Mela Nurmi Vampira's ghost walks alone. Before Elvira, there was Vampira. And before Vampira vanished, she changed television forever. In the 1950s, Mela Nurmi shocked late-night viewers with her gothic glamour and razor wit. Her horror host persona on ABC became a cult phenomenon, dark, mesmerizing, and completely original. But Hollywood didn't want original. It wanted control. She retained the rights to Vampira, but while others made millions from spin-offs and merchandise, Nurmi received nothing. Executives grew uneasy with her growing authenticity. She wasn't campy anymore. She was the role. Then she vanished. Her show was canceled despite high ratings. Contracts were dissolved, licensing stolen, and Mela disappeared from the spotlight, but not from Hollywood. Years later, records revealed she'd been working quietly in costume departments, advising on sets, anonymously shaping the very aesthetic she pioneered. Her journals tell the story best. They take the strangeness they love, drain it, and discard the soul that birthed it. I vanished before they could dissect me. Her disappearance wasn't physical. It was philosophical, a rebellion against exploitation, a conscious erasure. Mela Nurmi didn't fade. She walked away, and in doing so became a ghost haunting the very industry that stole her identity. David Lang, the man who vanished into thin air. In 1980, David Lang, a quiet screenwriter known for uncredited dialogue work on classic noir films, walked into a field near his California home and vanished mid-stride. He was in full view of his family and a visiting neighbor. One moment there. The next? Gone. At first, police suspected a prank. Lang was a writer, after all, but the story didn't unravel. It deepened. There were no holes in the ground. No place to hide. No sounds. Just a circular patch where days later, the grass died in a perfect ring. Witnesses reported hearing faint, garbled voices around the area in the weeks following. Audio engineers ran tests. Some of the strange sounds matched Lang's voice patterns, distorted but unmistakable. Even stranger, months before his disappearance, Lang had begun receiving large, unexplained cash deposits. He never said why. A documentary crew filmed the area 3 months later. Their equipment malfunctioned, audio glitched, batteries drained. They captured nothing except the silence. Was it a hoax, an accident, or something that defies explanation? Lang's body was never found, and the place where he vanished is now overgrown, quiet except for the wind. And sometimes, something else. Christine Chubbuck, the disappearance no one saw coming. July 15, 1974. Christine Chubbuck, a Florida TV journalist with a sharp mind and subtle charisma, delivered one of the most shocking moments in broadcasting history. Live, on air, before millions. Then, she disappeared. Not her body, her existence. After her death, Christine's entire professional footprint was methodically erased. The broadcast footage? Locked away. Witnesses? Gagged with NDAs. Station archives? Wiped clean. Photos, recordings, transcripts? Gone. But why? Christine had recently shifted from hard news to entertainment reporting. Her style was thoughtful, intimate. She peeled back celebrity facades with rare honesty. But the more she saw behind the curtain, the more disillusioned she became. Her journals, later discovered by family, revealed a deep unease. Each interview exposes the machinery behind the illusions we're selling. I feel complicit in a mass deception. She wasn't just documenting stars, she was unraveling the system that made them. Her final act wasn't just personal despair, it was protest. Her suicide note was never released, her story systematically buried. A meta-disappearance not just of a person, but of context. Christine Chubbuck is now a ghost in media history, erased not by time, but by design.